Everyone. This is Ray Bonilla, I'm really excited to present Mike Thompson. Sorry, Mike Thompson, an artist that I've admired. I just actually came about maybe about a couple of months ago, but uh, absolutely admire all of his work, and super excited to get into his career as an illustrator because it is definitely a long one, and that weaves through all different types of mediums and genres, and it's going to be awesome. But before we start, I just wanted to just read a quick bio on Mike. So award-winning artist Mike Thompson has spent the last 30 years creating illustrations for clients such as Marvel, Hasbro, Dimension Films, Cartoon Network, and WB. Mike's work has been featured in books, video game covers, movie posters, and toy packaging. Infinity Motors and Coca-Cola have featured Mike's art in advertising campaigns, and he's received 2 Clio Awards for the films Hidden Figures and Deadpool 2. Mike's digital sculpting clients include Sideshow Collectibles, Real FX, and Nike. He's a Wacom partner and Corel Painter Master, as well as ZBrush Live presenter for Pixelogic, and as well as a co-host of Stylus League. I want to add that. Yeah, so it's my pleasure to welcome Mike Thompson. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Ray. Thanks, man.
I'm always so like I rarely say your last name. I always refer to you as Mike T in my head because everyone else has,
Yeah.
So it's like I had to
It's all
double
good.
check that,
Yeah, man.
So I guess I wanted to bring you on today because I'm a fan of your work, but also you have a career that has just spanned so many genres, and you've been able to create incredible work in all of them, and it's not very common, I don't think, as for a lot of artists to do that. I mean, you have a lot of artists that kind of stay in their little, they get successful and then boom, that's what they do,
Right.
and you pretty much make a career out of it. But you aren't like that. You're always kind of, I mean, you've done stuff for like from editorial stuff to video game covers, and then Hasbro, like the GI Joe box. I mean, I don't want to like spoil anything, but like I guess I wanted to bring you on and just have us, you just take us on a journey of like how, where you started out, where was your training, who were your influences and things like that, and how did you kind of arrive at what you're doing today.
Okay. Yeah, sure, man. So I will preface all of this by saying I have ADHD, so I can't stay on one thing too long or I get bored. But yeah, no, I actually started off as a t-shirt designer like back in the day. So in college I would whatever the summer song was, like Will Smith or whatever, I would do him and Jazzy Jeff on a t-shirt, or, Run DMC or whatever on a t-shirt. I'm dating myself like crazy. Before the Smacks, he used to sing. I don't know if you guys know that, but so yeah, like it was t-shirts for a while, and that led me to really getting an appreciation for illustration. My instructor in college, later on in life, I actually got the same agent as he did. And so that was pretty cool. So, from t-shirts, I went on to doing magazine type stuff. I actually, let me back up.
Can I interrupt you actually? So what college did you go to?
Oh, University of Maryland, College Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who were some of your teachers there that were pretty influential?
So James Yang is the guy I was talking about. And he is with David Goldman, or he was with David Goldman agency back in the day. And so I went with David for a while. Yeah, so the t-shirts, I actually enjoyed them so much that I went on and worked for a couple of companies, and that led me from moving from Maryland to Philadelphia and working with, a company that was a little more geared towards, it was just like urban, young men's brand. Worked there for a while, and that led me to working with a company called Echo Unlimited, So while I was with it, when I was at Echo, there was only like 6 people, and Mark, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but Mark was very hands on,
Oh,
and so we decided, he decided he was going to do an advertising campaign that featured hip hop artists. So I come into work one day in Jersey, and down in the basement, there's I'm introduced to Dante, who I found out is Mos Def. And I didn't know Mos Def at the time, but I'm like, oh man, okay. So I'm talking to him, and he was one of the first guys that we had in the ad campaigns, but got to paint him, people like Method Man and DMX, and all kinds of folks. So that was a blast. I love hip hop music. So those illustrations kind of led me into advertising because they were featured in Source magazine and King XXL, that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, well, t-shirts are cool, but I'd like to maybe have a larger audience see what I'm doing. So I decided I wanted to do illustrations for magazines, and that kind of
so
led. Yeah.
can I ask? Can I ask about like the t-shirt stuff? Actually, do you have any images from that on you in your spread?
For the teas, I
Yeah.
think I have stuff on my website. I've got a bunch of
Okay.
yeah, let me see. I can probably pull some up while I'm talking to you. But
Because I mean, to think that, I mean, Echo Unlimited for me was like when I was in school,
hmm,
that was like standout t-shirts. Like I remember that Method Man
yeah.
illustration. It's just nuts. Like when I realized that it was all the same artist, I was like, what? And so it's crazy to think that like you went in through fashion,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it wasn't I don't I wouldn't think that for, I guess, like an illustrator, when you would think about like the famous, like just all the brands that people would at the time, like movie
Mhm.
posters like Drew Struzan and
Yeah,
all this stuff, like you would think that's, or editorial, but
yeah.
the fact that Echo Unlimited was so different because it was very artistic, and
Hmm, hmm.
um it was that's really at the start of like this huge movement that we have
It was
today,
great
like
because
integrating.
that led me to making a lot of connections. So when I was at Echo, I was running the t-shirt department, and one of the things that we wanted to do was not only come with like really, hot graphics, but we wanted to have new print techniques. So I would like say this piece right here, that this was the early kind of iteration of this character that became the visual assassin, this dude. Um,
Right.
and and what we did was we would, you know, I, we wanted the ink to look different. So there'd be reflective inks, and we had this thing called high density ink, which it kind of stands up off the shirt. And then we realized by doing, using that ink, if you print the line in different thicknesses, you can get what's called a lenticular print. So if you look at it from the front, it could be this graphic. And if you move a little bit, you can see the logo of, the Echo Rhino or something. So I would go
Wow.
to these we had like a really big ink, like the second biggest ink distributor in the nation. And I would just I'd work with the lab team on developing applications for the shirts. And that's how I kind of got tied up with like Nike and Adidas and companies like that, because, they had kind of found out about me through working with these guys. So
Wow.
yeah, t-shirts were the genesis. This is where it all started. And then that kind of opened up to everything else.
Did you know that, is that what you really wanted to do, or you just found really early success in there and that it just sort of led you into it?
You know what
um
it was? That was the most accessible type of artwork for me. So what I mean by that is, when I was in high school, I would, I'd be messing around with markers on my my drawing pad. And then when I went to college, I, transitioned to airbrushing. And so, De La Soul came out and I was airbrushing everything, like putting them on top of jackets and pants and all that. And that kind of opened my mind up to new applications, ways to get the inks and paints and stuff onto materials. And really my mindset was, okay, well, I can spray paint this jacket and one person will wear it, maybe 20 people see it, maybe 50 people will see it. But if I can print a shirt, then I can sell that to hundreds of people. So I wanted more eyes on the work. I've always had the mentality that, it doesn't matter how good you are. If nobody sees your work, it doesn't really matter. So I was always looking for a larger audience. And with t-shirts, I realized, okay, well, I can go so far, but if I can get my stuff in magazines and books, posters, that kind of thing, more people will see it. So it's always like this. It's like an insatiable hunger to get my work in front of eyes, and that's what led me to these different avenues of art.
And so, how long before you went into like traditional or took the next step? How long were you at Echo Unlimited for?
I was at Echo until 2003. I think I was there for maybe 5 years. And I ended up leaving Echo when I got the Coca-Cola commercial. So I got a call from a company called Burrell Communications in Chicago, and they're one of the largest African American design agencies in the nation. And they said, "Hey, do you want to work on a Coca-Cola commercial?" And I was like, "Are you kidding?" "Yes, absolutely." So got to be like not only paint the people in it, but I was in the commercial with Questlove and Angie Stone and Amel LaRue, like just all kinds of really like people that I, Music Soul Child, all these guys that I really liked their music anyway. And I got to paint them and then be in a national commercial. So like you really couldn't tell me anything. Like my head was about to explode. But the thing that did was it gave me the confidence to say, okay, well, I enjoy working for this clothing company, but I think there's more for me out there. So let me see what the next step is. And that's when I went more into the print side.
Wow. And that's when you picked up the same agent as James Yang did?
Yes. Yeah. Well, a little bit after that, I got a couple of blue chip clients, and then I decided to work with David. So, that was cool. I was like, okay, I enjoyed doing the work. This is a great question, actually, because when I was younger and I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, my thing was I wanted to do the art. I didn't necessarily want to do the business side of it. And so my rationale, I mean, I was a young dude at the time. My rationale was if I get an agent, I could just paint all day, and just collect checks basically. And it's a trade-off, So I tell people now when I'm talking to students or, just young folks in general who are into trying to figure out what avenue to take with their art, I'm like, well, you can get yourself an agent. They might be able to get you some work. They're definitely going to charge, 30% of what you make. And it might lead to you, taking that next step. But you should also try to do it yourself, because now it's a completely different landscape, right? Like it's much easier to show people your work now with social media and than it was back in my day. I don't want to sound like the old guy, but yeah, back in my day, I had to have two portfolios, and I would send one out, and I would hold on to one, get the other one back, and I send out the other one, and you would, hope that the creative director would actually look through it. More often than not, there was somebody at a desk who had, a stack to the ceiling of portfolios, and they would spend 2 seconds on yours and move on to the next one. So now, perfect example. I don't know if you guys can see it behind me, but there's a snowboard behind me that I had a company in Belgium asked me to make. And so they were like, to put anything on it you want, you can do whatever you want. So of course I did like a blaxploitation type of a painting. It's called Hell Up in the Alps, right? Kind of like a Hell Up in Harlem play. But those guys, they love it. They only made 7 of them. and I was a big fan of Black Dynamite. So I tagged on Twitter Michael Jai White, and I was like, "Hey, listen, big fan of your work. You ever do Black Dynamite 2? Holler at your boy." And he hit me right back. Like, he saw it, loved the artwork, hit me right back. I didn't work with him, but the fact that all you have to do is hashtag somebody now, there's really no reason, I don't think, for somebody not to self-promote, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
that's my
especially
opinion.
how, well, given how expensive um, promotion was
Absolutely.
at that time too, right? Because
Absolutely.
I mean, you had to take out one-page ads and like, you know,
Black Book and all that.
directories and
Yeah,
Black Book and all that. I mean, that's thousands of dollars. I mean, and at that time too, like I'm
absolutely.
guessing that was like the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
mid
To,
mid
well,
mid to late
yeah, early 2000s. Yep.
early 2000s. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yep.
what type of illustrators were you looking at that were like inspiring you, or were you looking at any illustrators
Oh my gosh,
at
yeah.
that time?
So you mentioned Drew Struzan. I'm a massive Drew
Mhm.
Struzan fan. Love Drew Struzan. Like, he has influenced me since I was, little, and E.T. came out, and Indiana Jones and all that. Like that, and that's kind of why I wanted to do movie posters. Right. So, like, we fast forward a few
Yeah,
years, I go from ads in magazines to like book stuff, and then movie posters was where I kind of settled for a long time. But I love Drew's stuff so much that I was like, I have to do that. I got to do that. So it meant a whole lot to me to, you know to end up getting a Clio for 2 movie posters. Like, it
right.
kind of brought it full circle, and I was really happy to check those things off my bucket list. But yeah, Drew, Norman Rockwell, Ernie Barnes. I mean, there's a lot of different styles that I like. A lot of different artists that I like. Alex Ross. I got a friend named Jason Seiler, who is just a beast.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. I know Jason really well. Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
didn't know you were friends with him. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Jason's dope, man. Jason is so cool.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's getting Time magazine covers when it's so hard for an illustrator to even get a magazine cover these days, like,
Yeah.
everything's photography. So yeah, big shout out to Jason, but so many influences, like, I love it all.
Yeah, it's really interesting, like when you're coming into like training as an illustrator, what got you into the game.
Hmm.
um it's really one of those things where it's like uh you're getting into it. Like, I loved people like Thomas Blackshear.
Hmm.
Strusson was like huge, and Bernie Fuchs, and like even the old school illustrators, Dean Cornwell and all the Branding Line people. But
Yeah.
you realize when you get out, like, oh, that work actually, that was illustration for them, but
Hmm.
illustration for me is a completely different world, right?
Yeah.
It's like, um you know we were just talking about taking out ads in Black Book and in Workbook. I mean, like, the illustrators coming into the field today are going to be like, what is that? Like,
I know.
what are you talking
Why
about?
don't you
Like,
just get an art
it's like,
station? What are you doing?
right, right. Yeah, it's like hashtag, it's like, of course, yeah, you could you tag Michael J. White, of course,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Like,
Right.
it's
Right.
like so easy, but it was so hard to get your work, in front of people.
Mhm.
That, I think that was a big point, that like, a great point that you were making, that like, okay, max, for just t-shirts, it's like a couple of hundred people,
Yeah.
but like social media, well, that's a whole nother story. You get thousands
Definitely.
of views sometimes on
Yeah.
something. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a web of, it's always been hard, at least just for me studying illustration, like, it's always been hard to get your work out in front.
Mhm.
um but I think that today, like, the cost of doing it, I think, is not as prohibitive as it was for other illustrators at the time, who you
Absolutely.
know had to save up for all that stuff. But yeah. So, anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to
No, no,
kind of
no. No.
make that point. So you got into, um, you got an agent. So were you doing mostly uh, magazines and like book covers, or what did you end up transitioning to?
It was
And
weird.
did you? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was weird because I was doing mostly magazines for a long time. It's interesting how it progresses, because when you're starting off, you want everything all at once, you know, like I want it now. And I would get these spot ads, you know, a little spot ad here, spot ad there, you know, then that turned into quarter pages, half page, full page, you know, spread. And so it's interesting because I always kind of liken all this stuff to, you know, building your first lightsaber. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Right.
when you've arrived, you can build your own lightsaber. But like when you start off, you think, I'm killing it. I can do whatever I want to do. And it's never the case. It wasn't for me anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So
Ditto.
I think I think that progression was important to me to realize that, you know, this is kind of the way when it comes to getting work. And I would get upset because I'd get like these reject letters from first when I was trying to find an agent, I was reaching out to like Cullen and Rapp and all these other guys, and they were sending me like these really beautiful reject letters, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm never gonna make it. And then I look back at what I was doing then, and I'm like, I'm surprised they were as nice as they were, to be honest with you. Like, you know, they could have been much more mean, actually. But yeah, so it was interesting because the magazine thing led to the Coke commercial, and that blew everything up. Like from doing that commercial, the way that it was dropped was it was for what was it called? Oh my gosh, it was a thing that Coke had for, it was specifically like Black creatives or something, and I can't remember what it was called for some reason, just escaped me. But they had a person who wrote music, they had a film director, they had me, and they had someone else, and we all got a car. Okay, I'm bugging. That's Infinity. Coca-Cola was a whole different thing. Forget what I just said, you guys. This is that was something else.
No, I mean, I'm thinking like I'm looking at it right here.
That was
Let's
Infinity and
see.
Black. Sorry, that was Infinity and
Okay,
Black.
so
No,
Coca-Cola Real.
yeah, that was for
There's
the real
yeah.
campaign. So
Right,
there
right.
was, yeah, so that, like I said, that had the Roots in it, and Angie and all those guys. And so that piece blew up. That the guy who was the creative director, one of the creative directors, he left, or art director rather, he left and went to another company called the True Agency. And he called me up for another piece for Infinity. And they do this thing called Infinity and Black. And that's where they have the Black creatives, right? So that was amazing. But it was funny because they told me the story. Originally, they had approached Kehinde Wiley. And it was like he had just done the what was the big hip hop award show. And so he had like, his big claim to fame was he had at the time, he had like Big Daddy Kane and all these rappers, and they had all this filigree around them and looked very much like
Right.
something from the old masters. And so they reached out to Kehinde, and he kind of gave him the hi hat. You know, he's like, I'll do it for like $100 million, and they like, whatever, man. So they said, find me somebody that kind of reminds me of Kehinde stuff. And they saw the Coke commercial, so they hit me up and were like, hey Mike, you want to do this thing? I was like, absolutely. So and
Wow.
they're like, are you going to charge us 100 million? I was like, no, I will not. So they're like, you're hired. So so I did that thing. They gave me a car to be inspired, and I did. Let's see if I can
Of
find it.
course.
I
Of
think I
course.
have it in
Yeah,
here
we need
somewhere.
reference and stuff, right? You know.
Oh yeah. I think they gave me a Q45 or something like that. Let's see.
You
uh,
familiar with David Grove by any chance?
I
Do you know
am
his
not.
So he was an illustrator, like very much like in the vein of like Bernie Fuchs. Like he
Mhm.
did the movie posters for like Pale Rider,
Okay.
Clint Eastwood and stuff. And so
Mhm.
he did like, I think it was a BMW campaign or something, or no,
Okay.
Mercedes campaign.
Uh-huh.
And they gave him a car. He's like, I need reference, you know. And it was like, okay, of course, we'll give you the car that we want to featured, you know. And he
Right.
got to drive it around courses and stuff, you know. I was
I,
like,
I
man,
was
what a life.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, yeah, can I keep this? No, no, you can't keep that. You can keep it. We're not going to pay you though. I was like, nah, I'll take the money.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
But
where
now
is
they'll
it?
just give you like a 3D model, you know.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah. Okay. I
Right.
don't know where it is, but I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, so I painted this piece. It was inspired by the car. It was actually kind of cool. On my on my YouTube page. Let's see, maybe I can find that. I had let's see. They did this whole documentary thing. Um and it was oops, sorry. That's the Coke thing.
Yeah. I sent everyone the Coke commercial because
Nice.
that's Mike
Thank you.
right there, man.
That was young. That was Mike Prime. That was back in the
Yeah,
day.
man.
Look at that guy. Wow. It's like
Yeah.
40 pounds ago. Um, all right, where is this? Yeah, so oh, here it is right here. All right, so this, let's see. Is this it? Yeah, so they did this thing where, oh my gosh, look at that black hair. Hate that dude. Um, yeah, they gave me the car. Basically, I used that as inspiration and like took parts of, like a piece of the grill and the curves on the lines of the rear of the car and everything, and I put it into this painting. And when it was done, it looked like here you go. So when it was done, it kind of looked like this thing. If they're going to show it, there you go. Wait a minute. I didn't know it was so flashy. Sorry. Come on. Here you go. Yeah. So this was the piece when it was done, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
So
could see why they would want like a Hyundai Wiley on it. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, thanks, man.
Uh,
Yeah. There it is.
oh yeah, yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Now,
So
so was that now like a technical question
mhm.
was what medium was that done in at that time? What were you working
That
digital at that point or
yes, that was digital. Yeah. So I think I was
okay.
painting in Photoshop at the time.
So
But
how quick was the were you how quick was the shift for you from traditional to digital or was it like from the beginning?
I've been making my way for a while, but I mean, I started off with double O, brushes and cold press board and acrylics. So it was interesting because in college I started working on this illustration of David Letterman. It was like right when he was going to CBS, I think. I did this thing of him and
Right.
he had it was like him beaming over, and I don't know why I did a Star Trek thing, but I did. And so I remember painting this thing, and it was only like 8.5 by 11, but I spent months on it, like months and months and months. And so I was primed for something that was faster and less expensive. That anybody who paints with traditional, paints knows that cobalt blue is no joke.
Right.
So
That's very expensive.
I
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I picked up a Quadra 650 and found out that I could paint on a Macintosh, and that's all she wrote. So,
Wow.
now I've got a
What
great
was
big
the
32.
what was the so it was Photoshop at the time that you were able to paint on that?
I think this is like Photoshop 3 or something. Like this is
Wow.
way back in the day. Yeah, it's
Unbelievable.
very
Yeah.
old. Yeah. So yeah, so that was my start. And then, eventually like all of my illustrations for movie posters and stuff now, that's all done in Corel Painter. So I'm a massive fan of Corel. And where's my thing here? So if I come over here, like this stuff is done with Painter. I just love it. And in
Awesome.
fact, like I said, such a big Drew Struzan fan that I love to do things that you can't do outside of the computer. So like I'll put down, paints that would be like oil paints and then go over them with color pencil. So, I get this
Right.
very distinct look, but you could tell where I'm inspired. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, those hatch marks kind of layered over, kind of
Hmm.
optically mix the colors. Like
Yeah.
he was. Oh man,
Yeah.
I love that stuff. Did you ever see his video on how we made the Hellboy poster?
I did. I did. I'm a
Yeah,
nut when it comes to him. Like I'm not even kidding you. I watched his the documentary, and it really choked me up. I don't like how he was done at the end there, but
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
But
but
he was unbelievable, and I had seen I always wanted to see his originals, and
Mhm.
I remember uh, I was lucky. I had to be like I was in LA for like a Society of Illustrators show that I
Okay.
was in, and there happened to be a Drew Struzan and Bob Peak show of original artworks,
Wow.
and at this place called the Forest Lawn Cemetery,
Uh-huh.
and it was like I took my buddy and I, Tyler Jacobson, and another artist, Mike Dark and Lim. Um, we all went, and it was to see those originals was like incredible. They had Temple of Doom, Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Uh, they had they had all that stuff there, and it
Yeah.
was just like y- amazing how much did it make it, you know, uh, in the reproduction, and
Uh-huh.
like there were things he was throwing in there that you knew that he was doing it for himself because it.
Right.
I was like, there's no way this red that this subtlety would have showed up in the 90s, especially like
Hmm.
on a photostat, but just like, yeah, absolutely love that stuff.
This is the one you can't.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to tell like on this one because it's small, but like I aped his style really hard on this one. Oops. And oh, come on. Yeah. So yeah,
That's awesome. What was that movie again? That
this
was
was
it their first movie?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, is it Keanu was the name of the movie? Yeah, about the
Yeah,
cat.
Keanu.
Yeah.
Keanu. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's funny, I've done so many movie posters that haven't been used. And so at some point you just kind of write them off, and then
Yeah.
then something hits and they keep it. Like this thing for Ali Wong for her Netflix, they used it. And
Wow.
I remember working on this and being like, I can't believe they used that thing.
I
So
love that. I love that. Attack of the was it the 50-foot woman?
yeah,
Homage.
yeah, totally,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Yep. Another one they used was it's very weird. This what's this movie called? Oh, John dies at the end. You ever heard of that? It's
No, I
really
don't think I
weird.
have.
It's a very weird movie, kind of a sci-fi kind of a thing, but here it had Paul Giamatti in it and these guys. Um Super weird movie. But yeah, they
Yeah, I love that
actually used it.
circular. Yeah, I love that circular design. That's great with the
Thanks,
bullseye.
man.
That's great.
Oh,
So this was after the Nike commercial. You were basically just doing you that got you into like advertising clients and things like that.
yeah. So I
Um,
ended up kind of getting connected with a buddy of mine I've been working with for like 11 years, this guy named Kenny Gravlis in LA. And Kenny has he does um, like one sheets and stuff for films. And um, and I think he just did some stuff for the Wakanda movie. He's done a lot of like high profile stuff, but that's what I got the Hidden Figures and the
oh,
Deadpool 2.
okay.
There was a giant billboard that they made for Deadpool 2 where it was fingernails and then emojis painted on them. I think I might have it on here. Maybe not. But that was my daughter's hands at the time. Um and I painted the nails and that's what they used. So like there was a tremendous billboard in LA that had this thing on it. It's kind of cool.
Wow. Oh, I definitely have to check that out. Now so from there,
Mhm.
so you were doing okay. So it went from basically t-shirts,
Mhm.
traditional illustration, then to advertising.
Yes.
Um, how long were you staying in like movie posters? Because I mean, it looks like it was a good amount of time given like the
Yeah,
the range
I'll
of
still
posters.
do Yeah, I'll still do movie posters when like this Apocalypse movie wasn't that long ago. But
Right.
yeah, so Kenny will hit me up and I'll do something for him for movie posters anytime. But yeah, it went from that to package design for toys. And I got into like G.I. Joe for a while. And I think I had what is it? I had the DC Infinite Earth guys here. Let's see.
So
So
really quick, so how are you putting back, uh, like, were you at that time? Because I mean, I know what your technique is now. We're gonna get into like my questions on like how you use leverage ZBrush to create your reference and things like that.
Mhm.
But how are you doing or putting together illustrations for like your movie posters or like even like your magazine or video game covers? Was it
that
just
was
like
it was a lot of Frankensteining. So I would get whatever reference I could from Google of faces. There's a piece in is actually a really good example. Actually, you know what? Hold on a second. I can show you. Uh, so what I would do wherever I could get it, I would use like photos and reference stuff. So like this was a Hot Toys John Connor that I had, and
yeah,
I needed to do a
yeah.
paratrooper for Hasbro. So this was the guy they gave me the reference of the gear, and then I did my drawing based on that Hot Toys photo, and then I started painting it, and it ended up looking kind of like this.
Wow.
This is the dude. But yeah, so I would and then this was the box art, the final box art. But this was interesting. Like I'd get photos, and this is like my work gloves for the yard or whatever, and then I would come up with this thing for whiteout or whatever his name is. You know,
Right, right.
there's one that I wanted to show you. My son is actually a Cobra trooper when he was a little kid. Oh, that was another one. Uh, but yeah, and then when I didn't have it, I would just find pictures from like this had to look like the actress from the movie. So it ended up turning into to this piece here, the mask, you know.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, man. But
So
yeah,
it's just like a lot of research basically. It's
a
just
lot of research. Yeah,
yeah.
pictures wherever I can get them. Back when I was in my fighting weight, I would use pictures of myself. These days, I just grab stuff off the internet, and that's it. Yeah. So, but it was a lot of Frankensteining, um, and uh, and just putting stuff together. And also, when I was doing the box art for when I started doing it for these guys, I would use a program called Daz Studio.
Oh
Remember that?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh
Daz.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so Daz was
It's super
free.
definitely super popular, especially nowadays because like I mean like clothing you could buy, you can it's basically like
Exactly.
hot toys on steroids, and
Mhm,
in
mhm.
3D. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I had Poser, I had Daz, but I had a friend who also was doing GI Joe stuff, and he was using this program called ZBrush. And I was like, dude, how are you getting the gear? Like, because he had the clothes on him and everything, and it just looked really, really cool. And
Yeah.
so that's when I started to learn ZBrush, and then I, was like, man, I really enjoy sculpting. So let me, practice. And
So that was the first time you had touched like sculpting of any nature like that, like in
yeah,
so you didn't because I mean I know some illustrators like I know Thomas Blackshear is he's infamous for like he was sculpting the cats, and James Gurney would do the same thing, for
yeah.
their stuff. So you weren't doing any of that until you got into 3D.
Correct. Yeah. And I worked
Wow.
backwards actually because I learned sculpting with ZBrush, and I enjoyed it so much that I went out and bought Super Sculpey and started playing around with that. realized I wasn't very good at that. But I got monster clay, and I love monster clay, right? So like I'm,
Oh yeah, yeah, it's good
playing
stuff.
around with that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but that was dope. But I'm telling you, like ZBrush, it clicked for me because it felt like it was the closest thing to drawing 3D stuff that I've ever seen. So like when I'm
Right.
sculpting, I'm literally just drawing on the screen, and then take that and pose it and do a paint over, and I get something like this. So like this is
Right.
my
Right.
workflow now. This is a perfect example. I did this for CG Spectrum, but this was like playing around with Z spheres and then turning it into this dude and then painting over it, and this is the final. You know,
Wow.
um, this was something I did for Intel, where they were like, "Hey, we love that fish guy. Can you do a dude like the fish guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So they actually filmed the commercial. Went out to LA and they filmed me walking around and working on the process, and that turned into this thing, which is basically like
Yeah, I
this.
gotta. I'll send people the that commercial. You still
Oh,
got the
thanks.
acting chops, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. Once a ham, always a ham.
Yeah. So
Um,
I mean, like that's really interesting because for me that makes total sense. And
mhm.
that's actually how I found uh came across your work, because I was working on something where I literally couldn't find reference for it that would figure out all the lighting and stuff. And
Yes.
um I was working on a Magic the Gathering illustration, and it was like, how do I simulate lava shooting out of a lion's mouth? That isn't, like, you're not going to find reference like that. And so I was looking up Z on YouTube. I'll tell you my prompt here. It was sculpting 3D Illustrator, right? Hoping that I would
Yeah.
find something, because I was like desperate. It was late, and you
Okay.
happen to be streaming on the ZBrush Pixelogic site, and it was illustration by way of sculpture,
Mhm.
and you're working on a bishop, and I was like, what is this? Like, I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really, I mean, you're doing basically a modern day version of what was been done for centuries, which is ba- realizing everything, all of your reference in 3D, and giving you, that way you control the lighting. I mean, like it affords you so many things. I mean, like
Yeah.
you're not limited to a single angle, and
Right.
you can move the camera around, and you're working with different light sources too. So like, I mean, like even that Intel one that you had right there, uh you know was, that's, you have all sorts. You have gear, you have different
Mhm.
body types, um all that stuff you can realize in 3D. And it looks like and that's poly paint, right? That
Yes. Yeah.
on the model itself. So like,
Yep.
for those of you who don't know, that are watching, that don't know ZBrush, you could actually paint on the models, like if
Mhm.
there were miniatures.
Mhm.
And so when I saw Mike doing that, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I've been living under a rock for decades, right? Because it just makes so much sense to do that type of stuff. And
Yeah.
that way you can get, like, you're bringing all of that stuff into Painter,
Mhm.
right? And then
And
using
doing the
that, and
panel.
then layering more and more color on it, because it definitely doesn't look like a ZBrush render. None of them do. Like, they look like full mixed media, fully realized paintings. And
Mhm.
um which is awesome. And you don't need, and I mean, is it also because you don't really need as direct reference as you would if you were trying to find the right light hitting the gear? I mean, because like those Cobra, like those Hasbro things, like if I got a gig like that and I didn't know that workflow, I'd be like, I have no idea how, you know like, where would you even get reference for something like that? You'd have to kind of Frankenstein it and hope for the
Yeah.
best. um
100%. That's how I used to do it. What's interesting is, so for the latest round of like the classified guys, they sent me a picture of this roadblock right on the left.
uh-huh.
So I took this guy, and then in ZBrush I kind of just dynameshed it all together and got rid of all the seams for where the arms bend and the knees and all
So
that
so
stuff.
they gave you an actual
They gave me
model,
an
like an
OBJ.
STL file.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, an
yeah.
OBJ. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was crazy. It was all like a million little pieces. You'd be surprised how many pieces there are for something that has like 25 points of articulation. But So they gave me this guy. They're always just black and white. So I poly painted him, and ended up with something like this after I sculpted in all the joints and everything as best I could. I resculpted the face because he was looking a little, like
Yeah.
comic-y, like toy-ish. And I came up with something like that, right? So when I was happy with that, then I posed him, and I used that to allow me to do a paint over and get this. So this is what they
Wow.
used on the box. And then is the actual box is this piece right here. So this was,
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
you know,
cool.
so I did a couple of these for them, and this is kind of this is the workflow. And I tell you, being able to do it with ZBrush has just made things infinitely easier, because I used to struggle trying to figure out how light is going to wrap around some of this, the guns and the gear and the helmet and all that other stuff. Like, this allows me to just concentrate on the forms and going in and
Right.
really having fun with the materials. Like, this Destro mask, I just had a ball just painting in the details to make it look as chromy as possible.
Right, right. Yeah, and you're not limited to like all your brain energy is focused in on just making the image instead of like thinking second guessing every stroke that you're making, like, oh,
Right.
is this the light coming right in the
Right.
in the correct location,
Yeah.
I'm definitely the same way. I have to kind of see it. If I see it and I have reference on it, it's not a problem. But
Hmm.
you know being that, but it also can be limiting, because it's like, oh boy, I really would like the you know reference from like the light coming from underneath, and like it's
Yes.
hard to find reference with light coming from underneath. But with this, not the case. I mean, you could change lights, you could change colors, and I
Absolutely.
mean, like that you know Ninja Turtle one, right? That's like, I mean, it's super dense too, and it all feels like you too, which is, it's crazy that the sculpture kind of, it didn't change your style, in a way. It just made things, like, I could tell, like, things just, at least for me, like, it was like, wow, there's this even more, rounded form, even more dynamic lighting, and like,
Yeah.
um it's really cool to see
Yeah.
that type of stuff,
I sculpt the way I paint, so it's just kind of an extension of that. So also, I don't know if this is a deep cut. You may not know this about me, but I have a little bit of a beef with the comic book people for their last Ronin, because
Oh
I
yeah,
did.
yeah.
You want to hear the story?
Is this pre or
Let me tell you
post?
something. Let me tell you something about this, Raymond. Let me tell you about this. I did this piece probably 8 years ago. And
No way.
yes. And so my idea was, at the time, I was like, hey, Mikey's the jokey guy, right? And I told this, I
Right.
went on a South American tour with Wacom to a bunch of different schools. And I told this story every time, and it killed. Your students are gonna love this. But so I always loved Ninja Mutant Turtles. I was like, all right, Mikey is always joking around. What if one day, you know, because he's not taking it seriously, his brothers get killed, and he's the last turtle. So I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this piece. I'm calling it the last turtle, which I did. So you can see on his arm here, I have like this is the memorial to his brothers, which is the cartoon thing of all the
Yeah.
brothers, right?
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
he's got the big gnarly scar from where he fought Shredder, and was the last one to survive. This is when the first Deadpool came out. So whenever the first Deadpool came out, that's when I did this. I don't know when that was. Um,
Oh, okay.
but then this little April jailhouse tat, like that's his girlfriend on the low.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, because people are like, why does he have all of the weapons? Like, why has he got all the weapons? I was like, yeah, because he's the last one. And then they had the nerve to come out with the last Ronin and not credit your man Mike T. And I felt a certain way about that. I got to be honest with you.
Oh
I'll let
no.
it go. It's all
That's
good.
yeah, I know, but that's such a when I saw that and The Last Ronin at the same time, like I came across those pieces and I
Uh-huh.
was like, man, this is such a great concept and what a great takeoff. Like I was like, oh, Mike did his own version of it. And then I saw other people doing their own versions of it. And that's what I thought. But to do that years before,
Yeah.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
Everybody knows that's my slowly I turn moment. I get a little upset when that happens.
I know.
But, but it
Uh,
was crazy though. So you know the I learned ZBrush out of necessity, and I ended up enjoying it so much. Like I don't know if you can tell from my studio, but like I'm a statue head. You know, I loved it so much. I was like, I want to do my own guys. So I started sculpting like my own things, and I got the attention of Sideshow. So they started off with having me do like this ODB piece, and I got to work with the foundation. His actually his son, young dirty bastard, saw this thing and really liked. Like the family enjoyed it. But
wow. That's so cool.
so thanks, man. Yeah. So
Yeah,
the idea
that's
for this,
big. I mean, like if it wasn't I don't know, I'd be stressed out. Like, 'cause that's just not some random, hip hop artist. It's just
yeah,
like
yeah.
you know, I, it's ODB. I mean, it's not like it's like doing like John Lennon or something like that. And
Yeah, I'm telling
there
you, it
you
was
go.
another check off the bucket list. Like that. That's my thing. So yeah, I wanted it to feel dimensional. So I kind of have him coming out of the subway, and he's carrying the the Brooklyn Zoo gate. Kind of stepping down on the concrete so hard that it breaks under his foot. So like I had all this stuff in mind.
Yeah,
But they liked
I love
it.
those Tims, by the way. I would love
Thanks,
those
man. We
Tims.
East
Yeah.
Coast. I gotta rock the
Yep.
Tims.
Yep.
That's actually mine. Those are my pair right there. But yeah, so sculpted this, and I enjoyed it so much that like they liked it, and I called my friend at Sideshow who got me this piece, and I was watching the Clone Wars, and it was like the last season of it, and there were it was like the last 4 episodes, which I called. I was like, "Hey, dude, have you seen these?" And he's like, "No, I haven't seen them." I'm like, "What are you doing right now?" He's like, "I'm watching the kids." I said, "Okay, give him some candy or something. Go watch these 4 episodes right now." And he's like, "It's like that?" I said, "Dude, watch them right now." I said, "Ahsoka and the Maul fight is incredible. It's better than the live action movies." So
Yeah, it
he's like,
is.
"All right,
Yeah.
whatever." So he goes and watches it, and I don't hear from him for a number of weeks. And he calls me up one day. He's like, "Hey, Mike, I saw the Clone Wars." I was like, "What'd you think?" He says, "Awesome." I said, "Yeah, it was." So he's like, "Would you like to do the statue?" Like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm the biggest. So just to give you a point of reference, when I was little, and I don't care, I'm an old dude, right? But when I was little, I went to see Star Wars New Hope in the theater 8 times, because
Wow.
we couldn't watch it on Netflix or DVD or Disney or
Right.
whatever. Like we didn't have any of that. So I enjoyed it so much. I went with all of my friends, then all of my family, and eventually my parents were like, "That's enough. Stop watching the movie." But so they gave me some concept art, and I sculpted this piece. And I really wanted it to be kind of like true to the. I wanted it to be true to the characters. So
Yeah.
you know,
That's totally the feeling of the series too. That like where they use a lot of smears, but in
yeah,
3D.
yes,
Uh, and I love that you implemented that because it's like and not it didn't make it look awkward because like when you freeze frames smear sometimes they're like you got one eye over here and one eye over there
yeah,
like it's like it doesn't make any sense
yeah.
when it's on
I
the
didn't.
motion but that's yeah.
I didn't think they were going to let me
No,
go with this. Like this was, I did the regular sabers that were just like the regular, just toothpicks, and then I did these, and I totally thought they were going to shoot me down, or give you, the regular ones and these. but they liked them and they went with them. So I was like, oh man, it's so cool that they did that.
So that wasn't in the original concept art.
No.
Cool. And so what was the what what's that process like? I mean, like you were, I mean, that's like a whole different, well, I guess it's kind of like ad work, right? In a sense where like when you, at least when I've gotten like ad gigs, it's like they give you a bunch of basically concept art of like, here's our ad that
Yes.
we've just spent, all this time and money kind of coming up with. Can you
Yeah.
execute it like this?
Yeah.
So I'm guessing sideshows like that as well, right? Where you're giving concept art or
Yes. So they gave me a black and white drawing of this, and it was this angle, like just the front angle, and amazing concept art, like perfect for me to go from. So all I had to do was figure out how to really get those S shapes from the side and the back and try to make every angle look really dynamic. Cause it's, for me, sculpting is kind of like a Rubik's Cube. It's kind of easy to get one side that looks good, but if you can kind of lock in a dynamic pose from all the angles, then you're winning. So that was the hardest part. Also, the what was it? Just sculpting some of the hard surface stuff like the legs and things like that were kind of difficult. But and figuring out how to make it not fall over when it's attached to the throne. So that was some
right.
engineering stuff. But yeah, the concept art for that one was very dialed in. For the ODB, I think the reason that I got this was the person that originally they were using to do it wasn't a big East Coast hip hop fan. And so their guy, he looked a little bit like Coolio. So, I was like, okay, all right, I'll take a shot at it. And then, the rest is history. So you never know when
Wow.
you're going to get the call, but yeah, that's
And
what that was.
this stemmed from you basically just saying like, hey, I like zebra sculpting. Let me, what if I would print stuff? I want to make my own sculptures. Or is that what happened? And that got you into like, hey, this is something I could do.
Yeah. So for Sideshow, I'm not even going to lie. Like I had to court those guys for a long time. And to get their attention. But again, this is one of those instances when you think you're ready and you're not ready. So I know I approached them early on when I was sculpting, and I just wasn't getting any love from them. But there's a guy that works there named Anthony, who is one of their lead painters, and he's a giant Echo fan, giant hip hop fan. So
Oh
we
wow.
met. Yeah, we met back in the MySpace days, back when I was doing like all my hip hop stuff. And just kind of, kept a relationship every once in a while. Hey, what's going on, man? What you doing? And so he's the one that kind of got my foot in the door for the ODB piece. And that led to doing the Star Wars piece and another piece and another piece. So it's really, I like to tell folks who are starting off in the industry, like everything else, like networking is so important. You know what I mean? There's so many people who are good artists, but you have to be able to network and really sell yourself. And so that was one of those things that paid off,
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And these other ones here, because I remember seeing that one, the Captain America and
Yeah,
the
this is
Redshift, the ZBrush Redshift strip.
yeah. Yeah. So this is using
So
okay.
is this all like client? Is it client work, or is this just personal work? You just trying out things.
It's personal work. So it's funny, like I love sculpting superheroes, but I've not gotten paid to do one yet. Sideshow kind of keeps their they have guys like Daniel Bell, like doing their stuff. So it's hard to get any of those pieces. But so I just do them for myself, and I just hope one day XM or Kotobukiya or somebody will, kind of reach out and tap me on the shoulder. But this was when I do my ZBrush lives, I'm always looking for something to work on, and I'm a big Marvel Zombies fan. So I was like, all right, let me do my version of Cap. And then when Redshift came out, um, the Pixelogic reached out and were like, "Hey, we want you to do something that kind of demos what we could do." And so this was all done inside of ZBrush with their materials and their new Redshift renderer. And you can see you get some really kind of believable effects. It looks like it was
Yeah,
rendered.
I thought that was actually printed and painted already.
Oh no,
It's
this
got
is
that kind
straight.
of,
This is
yeah.
ZBrush.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
all
So for those of you
ZBrush.
who don't know what Redshift is, it's a render engine. So you
Mhm.
can think of it like Cycles is for Blender, or
Yeah,
Arnold or V-Ray or anything like that. So Redshift, they just released it inside of ZBrush, which
2023.
for ZBrush is a huge thing, because you'd have to, usually if you wanted to see or put it in the render, you'd have to throw it to Maya or Cinema 4D, or
Right.
or Blender to see
Yep.
your stuff. So
Yep.
but yeah.
So it's
And
it's great
so
to.
that,
Okay.
okay.
I was going to say it's great to be able to do everything inside of ZBrush now, just very fast.
Yeah.
So that's what
And
that
so
is.
did you, were you like looking at tutorials, or did you have
No, there
friends
weren't
that
there
were
weren't any tutorials yet. You talking about for Redshift?
no, for like just ZBrush in general, like
Oh,
learning ZBrush.
yes. Yeah. So I went out and I bought books. I was on YouTube. I was anything I could do to learn. There was a ZBrush Hangout that I used to be a part of. And it's funny because a lot of the guys that that are doing stuff now, I used to hang out with them back in the day, and I was the new guy. So I'd be asking questions all the time, and they'd be like, "Ah, man, get out of here," or whatever. And they're like, why are you like, you're a good 2D artist. Why are you doing this? I'm like, come on, man, just tell me how to do this thing. And then, okay, here's how you do it. So, so I got a buddy named Odell Palmer who does a lot of stuff for the Marvel films and for like Walking Dead. He's done like just a ton of really, really great sculpts. And
Wow.
and so he didn't know who I was. And one day he goes, "You know what, Mike? Stick with it." He goes, "One of these days you're going to be okay. You're going to do something." And I was like, "Hey, thanks, man." I'm like twice as old as Odell, but I'm acting like the kid in the room. "Oh, thanks, man. Okay." Sure. So,
Uh,
anyway.
so so like, how long did it take you to, um, I guess, get it to an extent where you're here, where you're at right now? I mean, for when you started, I mean,
I would say it took me probably 3 years to start to really dial it in. But the thing about that is, I think of that process kind of like, so I'm a big, everything always, all roads lead to the Matrix, right? I'm a big Matrix fan, the first one. And so I kind of think, even though I hadn't sculpted before, my mind was kind of wired to think of 2D as, shapes and shape languages, forms, silhouettes. And so when it came to 3D, it was just implementing those things that I've already done a million times. It's like muscle memory. And so what I did at that point was I started to learn anatomy, and I realized how much I didn't know. Like, it's funny that you do things all the time and you think that well, I've I've got a body. I know what a body looks like. I can draw a body. I can paint a body. And
yeah.
and it wasn't. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing with you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't until I actually started sculpting that I realized what I didn't know, the insertion points and just things that were very important. And I still, listen, I'm not going to lie, like, if you ask me to name muscles and things like that, I name, like, I know some of them, but like, I'm not popping off, all of this other stuff like everybody else. So I know how to sculpt it. I don't necessarily know what all the names of them are, but I don't need to know, as long as I can make it look, good. And so that's when I just started practicing, a whole lot of practice. And I got the attention of the guys at Pixelogic, who put me on to do that, 3D to 2D. And and that is, I think I've done maybe, I think like 75 3-hour streams for them.
Wow.
In addition to, I think we're on our 83rd Stylist League, and we do 2 hours at a time for that. So it's just
Wow.
putting in the work until finally you start to figure out how to, you know, do the things that you couldn't do before, you know.
Right. Right.
That's
And
it.
we'll definitely get I definitely want to get into the stylist league, but like I guess like career wise,
Mhm.
um I mean like did you expect to be where you're at? I mean like you've I'm sure like you have a lot of colleagues that entered into illustration that aren't practicing anymore, you know,
Yeah.
or they're just off doing other they're in other industries completely or
Yeah.
completely out of it. So like um how did what was your mindset kind of be like evolving as you're doing, because you've definitely like you know you're not the same Mike T from when you started,
Right.
it's um yeah, I guess I wanted to see if you had any thoughts
Yeah, totally. So
on the,
no, I see this journey as kind of like a very kind of long and meandering one. But the thing of it is, there are things that I want to learn and things that I'd like to accomplish that I haven't done yet. And I think the great thing about being an artist is, as long as I don't get carpal tunnel or something, I can just keep going until I can't anymore, So, now, it's like these little mountains that you climb to the summit. So, learning how to draw, then learning how to draw a likeness was a big one for me. I remember being in high school and I couldn't get a likeness to save my life. And then in college one day, I think I did it. And then I just started doing, like, I kind of, for a while, I became known for doing likenesses of people, for whatever. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to paint faces all the time. This is the best. But then eventually I got tired of that. And I was like, well, I like music. Let me do hip hop artists. So I did them for a long time, and got a little bit of notoriety with that. But I think that I've been very kind of blessed in the fact that I've been able to make a career doing, pretty much based off all the stuff I loved as a kid, if that makes
yeah,
sense. So,
oh yeah,
you know, I
totally,
I can work on GI Joe. I can, sculpt Lion-O. I can, do Star Wars stuff. It's like whatever. I can paint, you know, Jay-Z a million times. So these things are there. I see them as they're kind of evergreen, and I don't get tired of any one thing, but I see them as almost like disciplines in martial arts. So, you can learn karate, but then also want to learn jujitsu, if you want to. So why not learn it? And you're starting over, like you're always starting at that white belt and trying to work your way up to the black belt. But then when you get there, you can either decide that, okay, I'm going to rest here and, just kind of sit back and reflect on my accomplishment, or I can start over fresh from whatever the next thing is. So for me now, it's like, okay, I can sculpt, but I'm not great at rendering. So now I got to learn Blender. You know what I mean? And my whole thing was, I'm not really a 3D guy. I always consider myself a 2D guy, even though I can sculpt with ZBrush. I never really kind of like ZBrush is 2.5D. It's not really full 3D or whatever.
right, right,
So learning that Z axis always kind of messed my head up. But now I got to learn Blender because I see people doing amazing things with Blender. So I'm like, I
right,
gotta get in on that. Um,
right.
I wanna play with that. I want to render in there with cycles and make, like, I want my renders to look dope. Like I want to take those into Unreal 5, or I want to just do substance painting and make, like, this Carnage was my first attempt at substance painting, and and it looks like something that actually exists, and it's just a
Also,
render.
so that's not printed.
No,
That's just a render.
no, it's just a
Wow.
render. In fact, I think that's out of Toolbag, Marmoset Toolbag. But
Oh wow.
yeah, but like I love this stuff, and I don't know, I got the 3D printers behind me, so now I'm like, all right, well, I'm sculpting these things, and sure, I can have somebody make the thing for me, or I can make my own thing. So like now I'm slicing stuff up and then actually, printing it myself, and now it's come full circle because now I'm back to stepping out of the matrix and traditionally painting like I did back in the day. Like I picked up an airbrush for the first time in like 25 years and decided to paint this guy, So like I got to tell you, man, like I don't know of any other profession. Athletes can do it, but their body eventually gives up on them. For us, I think it's the best profession in the world. We can do this forever. It's like Peter Pan, not Peter Pan. What's the guy that doesn't get old? Oh yeah, yeah, I guess that's him.
Yeah, I
No,
think it's Peter Pan, right?
yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah,
Dorian
yeah.
Gray, or
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, that's really interesting because I'm let's see, how old I'm going to be 40, and so I did illustration and then like editorial stuff, and then went into advertising, and then got into gallery painting.
mhm,
Um, and taught to like help pay the bills and get like health insurance and things like that. And
yeah.
I never thought in a million years that I would be a gallery painter. And I thought, oh yeah, that's really nice, but I don't know if there's I find it interesting, and I got really into it. And
Mhm,
I'm recently into 3D and stuff like that as well. But it's so when I look at your career, and I'm looking at this stuff, I mean, it excites me to learn new. I love learning new things as well, and like new disciplines like this. And um, I know when I was getting ready to do it, though, there was a lot of trepidation on my part. Like there was
yeah.
that voice, like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
get just go do, like, mortgage payments coming up. What are you doing on ZBrush?
Right.
uh this is not, you're not getting paid to do this.
Mhm.
And I guess I found from talking to other people that they had the same thing as well when they were going into new outside of their comfort zone.
Right.
And did you ever experience that, or just you were just like always following your interests and things like that? Because these things were, you moved on to like things that were lucrative for you, because you got
Mhm.
getting bored, and you're entertaining yourself as you're going through all of these things. And um for some people that might be uh something that they can't do just because financially it doesn't make sense to you. So how
Yeah.
did you set up your career to allow yourself to, I guess, do all that stuff?
So it is definitely intimidating. There's been a lot of first day of school type of jitters. But I think it's one of those things where I don't know, like so I've been freelancing since 2003, and there's been a whole lot of feast and famine. Last 2 years have not been fantastic. Like COVID it's been a problem. You know what I mean? So
Right.
for me, what I would always do is whenever work would get slow, I would work on my portfolio, like and so one of the things that I realized was, all right, I've been painting for as long as I can remember, and now I get a chance to sculpt, and I really want to get the attention of the big companies, like XM, Prime One, Sideshow. So I know that those guys have just just a giant roster of amazing talent, and so I have to stand out in some way. So that's why I started doing the ZBrush lives. Like those don't pay, and I've done a lot of content for them, but every time that I'm working on a live stream, whether it be for Pixelogic, Maxon, or even my own, the Stylus League, there's a pressure that at first was scary, but then was like a good pressure that I have to perform, and I have 2 to 3 hours to take something from looking like trash and trying to make it look like, a treasure. And so at first that was kind of rough, and I've had, some early on that I just couldn't do it. But I think my ego is one that I just don't want to fail spectacularly in front of, a million people. So and if it's on the internet, it lives forever, right? So eventually a million
Right.
people will look at it. So like I gotta figure this out. And so that's why I think it causes you to rise to the occasion. And 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 financially, not always the best move. I'm not acting like it is. Like sometimes it's rough. And but it's one of those things that I think it's worth it, especially if you have a plan. So my plan is, I 100% will I continue to do paintings for movie posters and stuff like that? Yes, as long as I'm a fan of Drew Struzan, I'm never going to turn down a painting for a movie poster. But but I think that toy packaging and making superheroes and making hip hop guys, that's stuff that has always interested me. And if I wasn't creating, I'd be doing one of those things, looking at Comixology on my iPad, or listening to, ODB on my phone or whatever. But yeah, so that's how I justify it. It's by no means would I say, hey, listen, quit your job, go after your dream. Like, that's crazy. It's crazy. Don't do that.
Right. Right. Right.
But if you can figure out a way to do it in your spare time or when things get slow, I used to play games, video games all the time. I was a giant video game head. And what I realized was, all right, I can sit here and spend 300 hours on Skyrim, or I can go and learn how to sculpt a dude in ZBrush. It's like, what am I doing, man? Let me go figure this thing out. So
Right.
that's what I did.
Right. And that's awesome. I mean, because it's definitely. I mean, I just became a dad, and so like
Oh, congrats.
time for me has become thanks. And so, boy, geez, it's been 2 years. I can't believe how fast this is going. But and I know that you're a dad as well, and so like time gets like condensed,
Yes.
crazy. Like what
Yeah.
you can't spend like your old days where you just like not talk to somebody for like 12, 13 hours and not be
No.
available to just do your own thing. Like
Yeah.
you always have to kind of be available, and those 12 hours go into like 3 hours, or 1 hour sometimes.
Yeah.
Um and so like the fact that the way you think about it is like, I already have this time, that I do this thing, like play video games, because I was the same
Mhm.
way. I, started getting back into it because I was just wiped from work. And so, and I would need maybe 3 hours to like just enjoy, like, it's like, for me, it's like enjoying art. Like
Yeah.
and like, I like all like the really most beautiful video games. Like, I
Mhm.
appreciate kind of the simpler stuff, and I'm a big retro game head and all that stuff, but like I'm in it for the spectacle,
Absolutely.
and so, but
Absolutely.
because I learn a lot, too. But I thought to myself, the way you were thinking about it, it's like, well, that's 3 hours I could, you know, do doing this new thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to note for people, because a lot of I taught at universities for like 13 years, and so when I was a teacher there, students would always complain about time, and
Mhm.
so um and the idea of like learning something brand new when you're doing something else, it's like, well, I don't have the time. But in
Right.
reality, there actually is a good amount of time. I mean, like you're proof of it. Like you learned a completely new. I mean, you went from like Photoshop to ZBrush. Is not, the world of 3D is not like simple. It's like, and ZBrush has got like, I don't know, maybe roughly, and I'm lowballing it, a trillion menus, and like, buttons, and like, what does this thing do? Oh no,
Right.
what
Right.
is this 2.5D mode that I'm starting out with,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And um, but to see that you were like had a plan, like you were saying, to kind of build that, I think is, as it's rewarded you, because you've gone into other things that you probably wouldn't have been able to had you not done that. And I think
Right.
that's important to know, and I give you a lot of credit to doing that, because it's you know whether or not it was the finances things is always like an important thing, of course, but you're it's not like you stopped doing the thing that you were doing and just
Yeah.
said, I'm a 3D artist now, see you later, everyone,
Yeah.
and said goodbye to all your clients. I mean, you were still doing your thing, and you are right. Like in terms of like freelancing, it's definitely feast or famine. It's like you get, 6 jobs at the same time, or you get
Always.
nothing,
Yeah.
and I think that's important to know, the people that are just coming into the industry. It's not that's not like, it would be great if you like got a job and you finished it and you're like, oh, that's great, then you got another one and you just worked on one thing at a time,
Yeah.
you know
Not going to happen.
uh and then had, time for swimming your pool, your infinity pool, and you know drive your
Yeah.
Maserati. But it's really not like that. And I think you're you're an example of like how to kind of survive as an artist too, because you're definitely entertaining yourself, and you're leaving that self open, for you. Because at least for me, if I wasn't like entertaining myself and trusting my gut on like things,
Hmm.
um I'd get really bored, and at if I was doing the same thing every
Yeah.
single time.
Yeah.
And I think the work would start to suffer because of that. And I think and I'm not naming any artists, but I've seen that happen in artists where they've just got their little niche, and then all of a sudden, like you could see it, the excitement kind of like it plateaus, and then it just starts to go down, and they become almost
Yeah.
like pastiches of themselves. And that's like terrifying to me, because to see that in print and in history books or just online,
Yeah.
and it's cool to see that, like, I mean, like, it's awesome to see what you're working on, because you could see the excitement in it too, and the
Yeah.
love is like really showing, and yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to go on a rant of how much I enjoy your thoughts on it. But you had mentioned Stylus League.
Yeah.
um so you did the ZBrush live stream stuff.
Mhm.
So you had never done live streams before that, or is that
I had
incorrect on that, or?
on and off did my own thing. I guess the thing that I'm most frightened of is putting forth a whole lot of effort and then nobody just cares. Like nobody cares at all. So
Yeah.
I'd be working on something.
I don't know what that's like at all, or I definitely don't lose sleep over that,
That's nothing that
right?
no artist on the planet can relate to that, right?
Right,
But
yeah.
yeah, so I would do these streams. Actually, with the Bishop, I think I was like, oh man, if I'm on ZBrush, I'm on Pixo's thing, and I'm getting this many views. Let me do my own as well. Like if I do mine, I should at least get like what, half of those people, a quarter of those people. And I would go in and start streaming on Twitch, and I would look and it'd be like one person in the room, and I'd be like, okay, well, at least I got one person. Then it'd be like 0 people in the room. Like, oh, this is embarrassing. It's
Right.
like being picked last for the basketball team. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
I did those a couple times, or a few times, and I just like my ego was getting too bruised. I was like, I can't do this. I got to stop doing this. But then a student of mine named Bradley had reached out and was like, "Hey, man, I'll go on your stream with you if you want." So I had this thing called mic drops, and so he would come on, and it was awesome because now it's not just me. Now, it's a little less frightening. So I have somebody to talk to, and I can do my sculpt or whatever. And that eventually turned into the Stylus League. So uh, Bradley, my buddy Bradley, he came from like the business side of things. He was with a Fortune 500 company, buttoned up, going to work every day. You know, but he had a passion to create, and so his wife was like, listen, if this is what you really want to do, and he's making a really good living at it, by the way. His wife was like, listen, if this is what you really want to do, then I'll support you. And so he took that leap of faith and just started creating and working on his portfolio, and I would help him out with, you know, whatever questions he had. And we started streaming together with another friend of ours named Danny. Danny Williams, goes by Point Pusher. So you might know Danny's work from games like Skylander, and he used to be at DreamWorks and Blue Sky. And like, Danny's a beast, concept artist, sculptor, awesome, awesome artist. Like, do yourself a favor and look up Point Pusher. And so, you know, Danny and I had, we used to talk all the time, but we never met in person. And then I was doing a Comic-Con for Wacom one year in New York, and I don't know why I said it like that, New York, and and Danny lived in New York, so he was like, I hit him up. I was like, hey man, why don't you come do a set after me on the, you know, at the Wacom stage? And he's like, oh yeah, okay. So he came down, did his thing. We went and he took me to this place that had like the most awesome soup ever in New York. Who would have thunk that I would like soup for lunch, but I had it and it was great. And we kicked around the idea of doing something together, you know? And so we were talking and everything. And like all of my big plans, it didn't really go anywhere. But Bradley, coming from that business side, was a facilitator. So he was like, hey, listen, guys, this is how we make this thing happen. Let's do this thing. You know, you guys are the artists. I'm kind of the, you know, you're the rapper. I'm the DJ. I'll sit back and kind of let you guys do your thing. And so we did that for a while. And then Danny got busy and had to go do his thing. And so Bradley kind of stepped into that leadership role with me. And now we've been sculpting together. And like I said, we've done, I think, like 84 shows now. We've had tons of big guests on, like people, everybody from like Redbeard to Mike Pavlovich. Like Eric Sosa does these statues for Capcom and Wolverine and all this other like amazing top tier artists. And so the good thing is, like, now I think enough people know me that I can reach out to them and ask them if they want to come on the show, and they'll come on. That's how we got Raphael Phillips, who's on this month, and we're working on Spawn. Raphael did T'Challa for Sideshow, like an amazing quarter scale Black Panther sculpt. And
it was so that like broke my brain when I saw
yeah,
how that was put together. It like,
yeah,
and I didn't even like it. Like my head couldn't wrap around it. And like he got interviewed by ZBrush first when I saw it, and then when
yeah,
you guys interviewed him,
yeah.
he went into a little bit more like kind of depth. But I was like, how does one? How, you know, how did his arm not fall off? You know, but
It's crazy. Yeah, because it's one thing to sculpt in symmetry. Like my whole thing is I like to break symmetry early and get into the sculpt. But he actually sculpted his guy out of symmetry. So for anybody who's not really a sculptor, what that means is, you know, if I'm working on this turtle and I know that I want to have, you know, wrinkles and pores and things that are going to be on both sides of his body, it's easy if I have it in symmetry. Once I break symmetry, it's game over. It's like sculpting with clay. You're doing literally everything by itself, you know? So you're doing 10 fingers now, and you know, everything is like double the work. So a lot of people don't like to work that way, but he did that for his Black Panther. And what's so amazing about that is the Black Panther he was doing the Civil War version, which I had it on my other thing. The pattern on that is insane, like the amount of
oh yeah,
detail. And he had to do that for the entire process. So yeah, you're right. Bonkers.
yeah. And for those who don't know, also Bradley Cooler, he works at Bungie now,
Mhm.
so um, he's another like incredible artist. And so so before I ask you, you know, just as to see the Spawn update on it, because I've been following. You
Okay.
know, it's like it's at 9 o'clock on Fridays, right?
Yeah.
We'll do a plug and everything like that, but it's like right at my, you know, like my 2-year-old dad's bedtime. You know, so I'm like following, you know, and so, but I rewatch him on it. But so you're doing all this live streaming. What's before we get into like the Spawn thing?
Mhm.
What's your like day like, because you're working on like so many things,
Yeah.
and I'm sure like you're working on things that you can't even, are under
Like
NDAs and all
NDA
that
stuff.
stuff. So like, yeah. So what's how do you manage
It's
all
it's
that stuff?
easier. Yeah, so I mean it's actually not as crazy as it used to be. So I also teach for a school, and I have students on Monday and Friday. I got wise to how to do it because I'll do video reviews on Tuesday and Thursday. So when I was trying to do multiple days, like, Monday and Tuesday, and then I'll do another day. And like, I couldn't put the math together, and then I'd be like completely screwed up. But now, as long as I keep to Monday and Friday, I can have as many students during the day as I want to. But yeah, so it's like Friday's the craziest day because it's like school, then work, then prep for the show. And then we have the show, and that's over at 11 o'clock. And then I'm wired by that time because I'll have a coffee. And then it's usually like catch up on The Mandalorian or, whatever, and then go to bed. So it was funny. You were talking about like feast and famine and jobs coming out of nowhere and getting older. I actually I was shutting down on like a Wednesday last week, and I go through my emails before I clock out for the day. And I saw that there was an email from a client who was like, "Hey, we got this rush project. Want to see if you're interested in it." And I was like, "Man, I can't turn down anything. I'm trying to get into a new house." And so I said, "Okay." I called these guys up, did a Zoom meeting with like 12 people, and find out that the scope of this thing is huge. And I had 2 days to flip it. So it's like, wait, what? So they're like, "Yeah, we want you to paint 6 cities and in your
No
airbrush
problem.
style, and we need it Friday morning." And it was Wednesday night. And I said, "Well, listen, this is the thing. Now, these guys have money." I was like, "Could I do this for you?" Yes. I'm like, "Is it going to cost you a fortune?" Absolutely. And they were like, they pulled a Jurassic Park, like money is no issue. I was like, "Okay, cool, let's do it." So I
Awesome.
pulled
Wow.
I pulled back-to-back all-nighters. And that's not a good look at 55 years old, man. Like that's not nice. Like I'm used to staying up, but at 25, it's like whatever. I'll do this. I'll do 4 all-nighters. But just those 2, I thought I was gonna die. So so yeah. Good news is I kind of got it done. The client was happy and all that, but the bad news is, man, oh man, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to do any more of
Y-
those.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you had to so you streamed later that day too, right?
And then I streamed on Friday. Yeah, yeah, totally.
Right.
It's
Oh my
crazy.
God.
On
Wow.
Saturday, I didn't know what day it was. Like I kind of fell in out of sleep. But have you ever been just so out of it that you don't know what day it is?
Oh,
And so,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it felt like a whole week had been compressed into 2 days.
Right. Right. Oh, God.
So
Yeah. I
anyway,
could completely relate, but so let's see what your just to give people
the
ex-
Spawn thing.
yeah, and also like just the stylist league, like what time are you guys stream at usually, and
Sure.
because I
So
I want to make sure you plug that as or anyone
yeah,
else,
no problem. So we're on the East Coast, and so we if we have a guest that's on the West Coast, we will stream Friday nights. If not, we've moved to Saturday because people are around Saturday mornings. It's easier for them. But we don't want to make West Coast people have to get up at the crack of dawn to be on the show. So you can it's normally if you're East Coast, it's 9 o'clock on Friday night, or 10 a.m. on Saturday if we're doing our own thing. So yeah, the idea for
that's
this
awesome.
Spawn. Yeah, thanks, man. Yep. So the idea for this Spawn thing, this is one of those things where, I was telling people the other day, like, It's good if you plan things. And like, I didn't really plan what I wanted to do. So this is like the third version of Spawn that I've done. And I was like, all right, well, let me throw Violator in here because why not? I want to figure out how to make it so Spawn can look like he's in the air. So I just started sculpting him. And yeah, so let's see, all high. So yeah, this is what I got so
So,
far.
so the premise of it, and mistake, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
is that every guest comes on usually for the month. I know
Yeah.
with Raphael you're doing like 2 extra shows,
Yes.
um, but they pick the theme,
Topic.
uh,
Hmm?
right?
Yep.
And everyone will work on that theme. So
Yeah.
Raphael picked Spawn, and so that's what
Yeah.
everybody's working on. But you've done stuff like Masters of the Universe and
Yeah.
Nightmare Before Christmas, and
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean tons of stuff.
We've got, so let
So
me,
this,
let's see, I'll just pull up the page real quick. Let's see. Ba, 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 ba.
and the cool thing about this while you're doing that, is that for everyone, anyone interested in it too, is like if you're thinking about going into 3D, they have like tons of like demos they go through, also like workflow stuff, especially they're really big on that. So at least the episodes I've watched, like Bradley will go into a whole like this is how I
Yeah.
do this, the X, Y, and Z,
Yes.
and then if there's like a Z modeler question, like Mike will do the same thing. So and this is all free. So I
Yeah.
would definitely give it a watch because you're gonna pick up a lot. I mean, I've definitely learned a lot. And I learned that I don't know anything, and I thought that
Haven't we, haven't we
I had a
all?
pretty, yeah.
It's
um,
funny. But yeah, you can see so we had Ryan Kane on, and I'm sorry, James Kane on, and James is the creative director for XM statues, and just a super super nice guy, an amazing sculptor. So James came on, and he is he's in England, so we did he picked 2000 AD, so we're doing like Judge Dredd. So that was cool. We did Nightmare Before Christmas, Masters of the Universe, Warhammer, Invincible. This will show you how. So the idea is that in 4 weeks we go from nothing to as close to done as possible, and there are some that we're more successful with, some more than others, right? So let's see. I have an Akira piece here that, oh, this is not the one. I have an Akira piece here that I'm a giant Akira fan, and so I decided I wanted to do Tetsuo. So let's see if I can get this to open real quick. And I want to print this thing too. So I like went all out on this. Yeah, here you go. Oops. All right. Looks like the materials got messed up, but so like I got, also I try to make things as dynamic as possible. Let me fix this real quick. The new ZBrush, if you don't have the material in there, it'll load something crazy. But yeah, so like that's the idea, like we have all of these, you can't miss deadlines for clients, but it's perfectly acceptable to let your own stuff die on the vine, and we're like, nah, forget that. It's crazy. So the whole idea of the Stylist League was to treat it like a business and force ourselves to actually finish the piece. And so like now this is kind of where I'm going with this guy. But this was sculpted on the show, you know, and that's it. Like I love that
that's
scene where
awesome.
he just starts freaking out and gets all gross. And I was like, this would be a fresh
Yeah.
statue.
Oh yeah, totally, totally. I love that.
Thanks.
I love that, and it's a great way of putting the base too, because it's not a common base. It's not like the classic like just little thing on. It's like a
Yeah. Museum
broken
pose.
concrete. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just love that. Yeah,
Thanks.
it's
One thing about,
that stuff is so exciting to me just to see, because like yeah, that's what I was going to ask you to do, is just like increase that, like
The
you
silhouette.
could see like the silhouette is so strong on that, and that's like it, it's it like that matters in 3D stuff as well. Look at that from the side too. That's the one
Yeah.
thing I realized right away with uh 3D, was that the I could sculpt something that looks perfect in one angle, and
Yeah.
then if you sculpt on it for too long, and you're like, oh, what? Let me work on the side. And you're like, what the heck happened to my sculpture? And you're
Yes.
like, why is
Yeah.
the foot by the ear? It looks fine here.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why I like this so much, right? It forced me to learn how to work from all sides at one time, because it's so easy. Like you're saying, it's so easy. Like, the front is dope. Okay. And then I turn it and I'm like, ew, the rest of it
you're
is a
right.
mess. Like, what do you do with that? You can't do anything once it's like that. So I'm constantly kind of just spin a little, work on something, turn, work on something. And the great thing about this is you can, not to be a commercial for Maxon, but you can you can solo out pieces and then just work on them, just by themselves and hide all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's so
yeah.
like if you to explain the rationale behind that for people who aren't like familiar with it, it's
Mhm.
like if you have a body part blocking another body part, like you could just solo out if you have in like on different like a either a different polygroup or a subtool, you could basically just say, I just want to work on the chest, and that way you don't have to get like he would just work on the chest and not have to contend with the arm
Right.
getting into the way, and or the cape or anything like that, which
Exactly.
makes life so much easier.
Yeah. Or I could turn off the
Oh, that's
poly paint and just see it with just flat colors and see how things look. It's easy to lose stuff if you have painting going on. But
right.
yeah, like this is I love it, man. I something about it's interesting. I don't know. Like it's like when it's like a new relationship to me, sculpting. Like I've drawn so long that I'm like, yeah, this is great. This is reliable. This is nice. And then the sculpture is like, well, hey, how you doing? What's your name?
Right.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Don't print that part. That's not good.
Yeah.
Don't cheat on drawing, you
Yeah.
guys. Stay true to drawing.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
But
No, but
anyway,
I get it, because I'm like, you just realize like yeah, at least for me, and I've spent very little time doing it. I mean, like only like seriously a couple of like a serious study a couple of months, but
uh
it's like you just think to yourself like, how did I not, how did I miss this like
yeah,
for this long, um but it's now super accessible though too, like you don't need like a silicon graphics machine or something like that to run
no,
ZBrush.
yeah,
um
it's
and
it's
Blender's
very
free, but uh I personally like ZBrush because you could tell, I mean, it's dense in terms of the menus, but once you figure that out, it really feels like the closest thing to kind of drawing.
yes,
At least I found, versus when sculpting with uh Blender. It's a you tell that like it's Blender was a 3D program first, and then a sculpture was added to it. So like the
right.
sort of the quad sculpting. Whereas like ZBrush, you could tell was just like a sculpture program that's like adding 3D things now,
It's true. It's
to
true.
it. I
And I
love
mean,
that Judge Dredd thing, man. That is so cool.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, I gotta fix these couple parts, but yeah, so it's like you're right. Like man, it's just so intuitive for me, and it allows me to you can just get so creative with it, So like this is what we did for Judge Dredd. I got my ruler here because I don't want to make it so big that it doesn't print. But yeah, just like going in, and the gun is a perfect example. Like the gun is something I haven't addressed yet, but everything starts off as just like a simple shape, and then you make it more complicated until you get it to look amazing.
Yeah. And look at that silhouette. You could totally tell that it's Judge Death right there. Like just on the, especially like, yeah, right there too. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's awesome. That's just so
Thanks,
cool to
man.
see. Because I know like a lot of if your students are watching, this is why like silhouette gets hammered in
Yeah.
so much is because of like the readability of the image has to be, strong. Look at that. That tells a story right there,
Hmm.
Um, it's
Yeah.
almost
You don't
that's
even.
almost like a like a Mike Mignola type of like silhouette of like what it would look like just as a flat shape like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And again, you can tell that like I'm very comic influenced, right? Because like with my sculptures, with my drawings, paintings, everything, there's like a rim light, and there's just some type of dramatic lighting, dramatic pose. That's the one thing that carries through, whether it's a painting of a personality, or it's a superhero, or something like this. Everything I want to have dynamic shapes and colors, just to make it feel like a comic book, because
Yeah.
that's kind of what I love.
And it has weight to it too. Like it reminds me of that's one of the reasons why I like Alex Ross is that like you really feel the weight of those figures when he's
Yeah.
drawing them. And
Yeah.
I think like maintaining that in like sculpture too is you have to be really conscious of kind of like your volumes and all of your masses and what the pose is like and like how to capture something like motion because it this is like mid mid motion, like it's like people don't stand like that naturally. And
Right.
you could see kind of a lot of the animation principles, like all the S curves that you're putting into like the hands and just the overall general gesture of it. I mean, uh, it's like a you're approaching it like a painter would, like if you were composing an image, but you're
Yeah.
doing it like for all of the axes. And yeah, that's awesome. I just it's I'm pointing it out to myself like, oh look, Ray, look, It's-
Thanks, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great stuff.
Thank
Um,
you.
so so what's we've been almost going for 2 hours. And I guess I wanted to wrap up with just asking you like what else are you either like what are you working on or what's Mike T's sort of where does he see himself in 5 to 10 years?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. So right now, like I said, it's a building season. So it's I think that's part of why I'm leaning into the Stylist League so much, because that's something that is kind of my baby, that I can put all these hours in, and hopefully it pays off. We've already got like a nice Discord community. We have a nice following on YouTube, and we're doing things like we have sponsorships with connections with like Intel and Wacom and Pixelogic and all those guys. So we just gave away a Intel laptop last year for a drawing. So I see us going forward with that, growing that out, getting figuring out how to generate some income, because right now we're paying for a lot of things. Maybe figure out how to get a Patreon or something where we can get some money to pay for some of the infrastructure, and then getting more sculpting things. Like it's pretty much uh, it's always grinding for clients. That's the bottom line. It's always trying to find new clients. Intel is probably one of my newer clients, and again, it's making relationships with the people over there and leaving the type of impression that they want to turn you on to other people. So that's it. Continue to be able to freelance. That's my thing.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Well, Mike, man, this was great. And for me just to see someone who's been in the industry for as long as you have and has not like it's not lost his love for just making stuff. And like you're like as excited as like you're like a kid, like
Yeah.
a young kid being super excited to um and like you're just getting into this thing. And that's something that I admire about you and something that I want for myself in my career. And I'm sure a lot of other people can relate to that as well. And thank you so much for just sharing all this stuff and sharing images and your thoughts on things, and yeah,
Of
and just sharing your time, most importantly. And so,
course.
yeah, so make sure you check out the Stylist League, and also you're on Instagram as well, right? No, in
Yeah,
ArtStation, and
yeah. I try to just push my link tree. If you go to linktree.com/Mike T Artworks, then you can get all of my socials. I actually have a tutorial video for anti-venom that I sculpted, and do mentoring as well. So if somebody like
I
Ray
can tell
wants to learn
you,
ZBrush, he could reach out and we'll figure out something.
yeah,
Some
man, yeah. Well, I'm gonna work. I'm actually working through the anti-venom video now, so it's a
Nice.
great video, by the
Thanks,
way.
man.
So it's a great
Appreciate it.
video, and it makes total sense to me. It's like, but we're on the same wavelength. So,
Awesome.
but
I appreciate
yeah,
the support,
thank you.
man.
Yeah. Oh no, my pleasure. And yeah, so thanks to John and Timmy for allowing me to guest speak. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully, I didn't. I know Mike didn't mess it up. I hope I didn't mess it up.
You were great, dude.
So
You got a lot
yeah.
of Ray. You got a lot of episodes ahead of you.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I got to upgrade my background though. It's really looks awful. So yeah.
That's good.
You both
Awesome.
were
I'll do it
terrific.
from Mike's place.
Thank you.